In the middle of the Derek Chauvin trial, protests have been sparked across Minnesota over the death of a Minnesota man named Daunte Wright. Similar to George Floyd, he also died at the hands of the Minnesota Police Department. So earlier this week, Derek Chauvin's attorney requested that the jury in his trial be sequestered as a result of the protests.
Yes, Your Honor, at this time I am requesting, again, sequestration of the jury in view of the incidents of last night. As the court, I'm sure, is aware, an officer-involved shooting took place in the city of Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. As a result of that, there was some fairly extensive civil unrest that occurred. I would note for the court that we have at least one juror who's a resident of that particular city and other jurors who have connections to Brooklyn Center.
You see, the defense counsel was worried here that the jury may hear about the protests and then become influenced to come to a particular decision. In this particular case, he's worried that the jury would end up convicting Derek Chauvin where they otherwise could potentially acquit him.
But ultimately, this incident, while it is, I understand it's not this case. I understand that it does not involve these same parties. But the problem is that the emotional response that case creates sets the stage for a jury to say, I'm not going to vote not guilty because I'm concerned about the outcome. During voir dire, we had many jurors who, on both sides of the political or social debate, who expressed concern about if they don't agree, if the public doesn't agree with the verdict.
So the defense counsel actually asked for two things: sequestration of the jury and voir dire of the jury. Voir dire is basically where the legal team from both sides of the case would be able to question the jury on a particular matter. In this case, they would ask about how much the jurors know about the protests or about the death of Daunte Wright. The other request, sequestration, basically means the isolation of the jury so that other people can't come in and contact the jurors to improperly influence them for one side or the other. Now, in this case, the judge denied both requests. And here's why.
The reason why in my initial order I said we're not going to sequester, but we might go to it in the middle of trial if, and the concern there was that despite keeping jurors anonymous, that somebody may find out who one of the jurors is and reach out and have an inappropriate attempt to tamper with the jury. No indication that that's happened in this case, and that was the concern about going to sequestration. I understand the argument from the defense that this now puts them even more ill at ease, but I think sequestering them would only aggravate that. Oh, I heard about the civil unrest and now the judge is putting us into sequestration. There must be a greater threat to our security. I think the better way is to just continue with the trial as we've been going, that's a separate issue. They should treat it as such. It'd be a different story if it was civil unrest following another verdict, where the jury can see what the consequence of a certain verdict might be in a similar case, but that's not this case. The jurors all are aware and were concerned about their safety because of what happened in May of 2020, the civil unrest that followed there.
So basically, it sounds like the judge is saying that short of any kind of evidence of someone actually reaching out individually to particular members of the jury, the judge is probably not likely to sequester the jury. At the same time, the judge is also talking about particular concerns that members of the jury may have in coming to a particular conclusion that may be popular or unpopular. And it's interesting here that he's saying that sequestration of the jury could actually end up aggravating those concerns. Many of us would refer to this kind of backfiring as the Streisand effect. If you don't know, the Barbra Streisand effect comes from the one and only Barbra Streisand. It basically is a phenomenon where someone tries to hide or remove certain information from the public or from certain individuals, and where that ends up backfiring in an unintended publication. What happened with Barbra Streisand is she realized that a photo of her home in Malibu was published on the internet. Specifically, it was part of the California Coastal Records Project. The photo was apparently taken only to document erosion along the California coastline. However, when she realized that her home was out on the internet, apparently some lawyers got involved, some cease and desist letters got sent, and that ended up increasing the interest that people had in the location of her home. So basically, in an ironic twist, all of her efforts to protect her information actually ended up doing the exact opposite. So in the Derek Chauvin trial, it sounds like the judge has a similar concern here. If members of the jury had heard about the unrest and then were sent to sequestration, they could become even more fearful of their lives, and that could actually impact their decision. On the other hand, if they hadn't heard about the unrest and then were suddenly sent to sequestration halfway through trial, that could still aggravate those fears and end up piquing their interest. And as a result, they may end up actively digging for that information. Basically, it's one of those super sensitive situations where you're kind of damned if you do, kind of damned if you don't, but at the end of the day, the judge has to come to a conclusion that he thinks is ultimately going to at least do the least amount of harm. But what do you think? Should the judge have ordered the sequestration of the jury? Do you think it's likely that these protests will end up having an impact on the jury's decision? Or do you think that the judge made the right call here? Would sequestration have potentially made things even worse? Let us know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you found this interesting or informative, and if you did, we'd love it if you'd hit the like button. It does help us with the YouTube algorithm gods.
I am the god of thunder!
And if you're new here and you want to see more stuff like this, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. That way you can find out when the next video is uploaded. See you in the next video.